not exactly sure what year. I think if I think it back, I met Pete in 1984 in a room that had 70 people in it. It was a writing workshop at Columbia, taught by Gordon Lish. Yeah. And then Pete and I went on from there. And so I watched one heartbreaking sentence after another heartbreaking sentence. And we all, this amazing group of people who came through that period of time, each creating sentences that sounded unlike each other's sentences, and the sentences only each of us could make. We watched each other grow as writers, and it was a kind of astonishing experience over a period of time. Not an easy experience. It was like boot camp in many ways, because when you didn't fucking get a good sentence, you learned why you didn't get a good sentence, and that was useful. But Pete and I, from the get-go, were allies to each other in the way of people who love language and people who see that what we're doing is the only thing we can be doing. So that was a joy. And I'll just tell a couple of things about the ways that he was a generous writer to another writer before I read a little bit from his book. I came to writing fiction initially as a poet and still work as a switch hitter. And when I started writing I'd written a book of poems, I'd written a book of stories, and then I was trying to write a novel. And I didn't fucking know what I was doing. And I thought, oh, let me find the most completely experimental structure I can find. And I wrote about 40 pages of it. I tried to read it to myself. I was so bored. By about page 7, I couldn't go further. And I saw Pete, and I was like, oh, what am I doing? And he said, what are you doing? Just write. Just keep writing little poems, Vic. Just keep writing little stories that are poems, and it'll hang. And the first novel I wrote, it was Pete saying to me, and I went back to those 30 unbearable pages, and I realized I'd written like the first sentence to different sections over, and all I needed to do was just like, oh, write that scene. I didn't understand what a scene was, really. Pete's lesson, just do it, Vic. You got this, you do it. And that was him, you do it and do it right. Then I went down to Georgia and visited with Carolyn and Pete, and I visited them. I don't know if you'll remember this, Carolyn, but I visited at a time that I was in a moment of, I was down there to be a writer. I was down there for like 5 days of classes and readings and stuff like that. And I was in a moment of just personal extreme. One of my kids was ill in an extreme way, and I was undone. And I got taken into this family. I got loved by this family. Pete and I got to go out in the swamps and canoe and hang out and talk books. And in his study, he gave me an eagle feather that sits by my desk still today. So that's pretty much all I want to say, which is that one of the great things about Peter Christopher was that he was as determined a friend as he was a writer. And I love the guy.
He loves you.
Oh, this is one of my This is not the story I want to read, but this is one of my. I'm just teaching my class about making stories out of listing, and Pete has one of the great. He has a couple of these stories that makes use of bizarre listing kind of things. 167 is where I want to go, though. This is a story called Blood and Seed. I'll just read a little bit of it. Maggie, Mom tells you she sees you now and again at the market with your husband and your 2 boys. Mom tells you stop and ask how she is, how we all are, while your husband pushes the cart and your 2 boys shout, Mom, hey Mom. Maggie, what is asked in your heart's heart these years later is answered, yes, Maggie, still. This life those years ago, Maggie, is how I still see you. I can still see you waiting for me, football jacket tailed out behind me, running to you. The window light behind you is blocks and bars through the yellow kitchen curtains on the kitchen floor, on the mouth of you telling me Mom comes home at 2. The homesick talk of television in the day is what still comes from the other room, Maggie. That talk and the smell of toast rims on the plate on the couch. You sit, handing the plate down to the carpet. You undo your robe, looking me your luck. Maggie, your mouth is still toast. Tongue, girl. You are still the smell of girl sleep. You are soft robe bunched under me, and under the robe, the heat and the smooth of a girl unfolding. A car that is maybe your mom's car, outside and under the talking low of the television, is heard driving up and by the house where you live. You pull me down, neck from behind, lettered football jacket and all, to where we fit, as if born for this. Maggie, I can still see your dark hair golding, your hair on the corduroy ribbing up of couch, on and over my hand. I can still see your bubs out flat, the dark of your bullseye centered, shadowed line, thumb traced by God, parcel out your small ribs. Your lean girls come up apart. The hair down there is darker, pointed as goated beard. My knob on is out. My football jacket is rucked up, the snaps unsnapped and shirts yanked up for skin on skin, for the knob poke bobbing of me inside you. Maggie, there's no going back now. Breaking you open, the fear is you will not heal better than before. I can still see what looks like fear, your head back, your eyelids pinching, your lips rounding out oh after oh. Maggie, the gathering of that vowel over and over is what brings me on, that and seeing you in the breaking and making of this, our lives. The yellow light crosses the kitchen floor to poke the carpeted dark. The talk of daytime television talks on. I can still smell the smell of blood and seed. I can still see the red knob slit with pearly gloss spun out of me, come out of you. Gobbed, glossy strands hang shining from me to you, from yours to mine, from your 2 boys and their bluish bloodied heads pushing out of you, to the red glazed daughter of mine. The doctor holds up by her feet, the same daughter soon to be home, waiting while a boy runs to her as fast as he can. Maggie, when you see Mom and she tells you fine, we're all fine, know that what is asked in your heart's heart is answered, yes, Maggie, still. Maggie, it is still gobbed and shining between us. Pete Christopher.